Have you had an encounter you'd like to have narrated on this channel? If so, send me an email with all the details. You can send your email to contact@buckeyebigfoot.com. Hey there, and welcome everyone. Now listen, I am so glad you could make it for tonight's journey, because tonight we're going back to meet up with a Bigfoot named Ha-Tu-Ha, and we're going to have a little tea and a little sit down with him. Now, if you missed the first and second video of how Vic met this Bigfoot, I'll have the links in the video description below for those videos. Otherwise, go grab your snackage, get up in the saddle, because we're going to start moving. Because you know, the journey into Sasquatch Valley, it can be long, and it's dark, and the Sasquatches are waiting. Let's go. I left off last time with me setting the alarm for every 30 minutes. I forgot to mention when I originally arrived, I did see the sock I hung up that was still there. So I woke up at the first alarm sound and blew the air horn and then went back to sleep. It must have been 12:30 a.m. and again around 1 a.m. and 1:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. and still nothing. At this point, I could not sleep, being so upset at the possibility of not interacting with Ha-Tu-Ha. I thought many, many thoughts of why he is not meeting me. All the reasons I could come up with were legitimate reasons, and that confused me even more. So I started to think of other encounters people had and how some claim Bigfoot actually spoke to them through telepathy. But I always dismissed it as confusion of the person who had the encounter, that they were properly overwhelmed with the encounter, and that they only thought this from the shock. But then I started to think, why isn't it possible? I really didn't believe in Bigfoot 100% prior to my encounter, so it wouldn't hurt to try. I used the Chinese meditation tactics that I learned called Qigong. Qigong is used for relaxation, exercise, preventative medicine, and physical and mental healing, as well as clearing the aura around a person and dismissing all negative energy. It took me about 20 minutes to get into the zone that I was looking for. I repeated Ha-Tu-Ha's name slowly, and then I said, "I'm Vic. I miss you. I mean you no harm. I am your friend, like family. If you can come to see me, let me know you hear me, so I know you are okay and not hurt." I then screwed it all up by having negative thoughts like, "You dummy," meaning me. "He doesn't understand English." So I got back into the zone, but this time I only said his name, Ha-Tu-Ha, and my name, Vic. I did that about 10 times. Then I started to re-envision the last encounter we had, hoping he would see my thoughts. After about 45 minutes of doing that, I went to sleep as I was more relaxed and felt sleepy. At about 4 a.m., I thought I heard footsteps. I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or if it was reality. I opened my eyes, and yes, in fact, there are footsteps. I peeked out slowly from the tent window. And yes, it was a Bigfoot. I froze. I'm not sure what the feeling was. Maybe fear, excitement, unbelievability. I don't know, but I didn't get out of my tent. It came and sniffed the tent. Then, as fast as it came, it disappeared. I beat myself up for not coming out of my tent. I thought, "You dummy. After all this time, and you get an opportunity to see him, and you blew it." My thoughts were, well, what if it wasn't him? I only saw a silhouette of a Bigfoot. It could have been an aggressive one that I had called in, or I could have startled him, making him aggressive, or run away and not come back. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, and I came out of my tent at about 6 a.m. I went out and gathered mint for tea and boiled the water and made it. I also brought with me an extra large coffee mug. It's about 7 inches high and 5 inches wide. I purchased it at a novelty store. I guess it was to be used for a gag. They had the option there to screen print names on them. so I had his name put on the mug. I figured this mug was perfect for Ha-Tu-Ha, being so large, and I remembered the trouble he had drinking from the small cups the last time I offered him some tea. I boiled enough tea to almost fill his mug and mine. I blew my horn, and I sat and I waited. For about 15 minutes there was nothing. Then I hear something behind me. I stared straight ahead. At that same time, I then noticed that the sock that I had placed there the time that I was here before with my kids was now gone, and it was there when I had arrived. Now that made me so excited. I was not able to sit still. My body and my mind were racing so fast with emotions and thoughts like it never had before. Now the sound started to go around me, from behind me to my left side, circling me almost to be in front of me. There was one very big concern I had, which made me unclip my gun, but I left it in the holster. It was that I knew for a fact that was not one set of footprints, but it was two sets I was hearing. Then suddenly and slowly, it emerged from the trees directly in front of me. I immediately put my hands up, palms facing it, and I put my head down, but I could still see it from the chest down to its feet, because I didn't know if it was Ha-Tu-Ha yet. Then it happened. I heard, "Vic, Vic, Vic." I heard it 3 times before he actually said Vic in one word. I slowly picked up my head while saying, "Ha-Tu-Ha." When our eyes met, he let out this loud sound. It was like a laugh and a sound of excitement all at the same time. I slowly got up, and he was already standing in front of me. He grabbed me, and he lifted me 3 to 4 feet off the ground, and he was actually hugging me with such strength that I was getting the air squeezed out of my lungs. I also put my arms around him, and this went on for about 40 seconds. All the while he made purring-like and grunting soft sounds that sounded like sounds of happiness. I was beside myself. I was so overwhelmed with emotions, I didn't know what to say. I caught myself talking to him in English in a rapid succession, as if he understood me. I was saying, "Where have you been? I came here so many times looking for you. I missed you so much. I'm so happy you came." I finally caught myself when his head was twisted off to the side, like he was not understanding what I was saying. I gestured for him to sit down, and I gave him sugar in his palm to remind him of the mint tea we had had. I picked up my mug, and I pointed out how I'm drinking out of it, and that it was hot. I then gave him his mug, and he proceeded to drink from it. I also put extra sugar in his cup. Oh, by the way, I did purchase all organic raw sugar so that it didn't have any additives or pesticides used during the growing or production of the sugar. I didn't want to get him sick in any way. While drinking his tea, I noticed a surreal, civil-like manner in which he was conducting himself. He wasn't slopping the tea. He mimicked my movements in a relaxed and dignified manner. He had a permanent smile painted on his face, like he was happy. He looked so cute with his missing tooth showing with the smile. He took his one hand and rubbed my head several times, as if saying, "I missed you. I'm glad you're here." I did the same, but rubbed his leg instead, with a smile on my face. He then got up. I went to get up too, but he put his hand on my shoulder, gesturing for me to stay. He left and then came back with some sticks. He proceeded to break them in different sizes. He laid down 2 sticks the same size, pointing at the first one and putting his hand on his chest several times. I assumed the stick was supposed to be him. So I gestured and I said, "Yes, I understand, that's you," pointing at the stick first and then at him. He then pointed at the second stick next to his stick and cupped his breast, which I assumed meant that was his wife or mate. I said yes, and I nodded my head and said, "Your wife, cupping my breasts." He proceeded to lay 3 more sticks, each slightly smaller than the other. He pointed at the 3rd stick and cupped his breasts again. I gestured and said yes, nodding my head. "This was your daughter." He pointed to the 4th stick, touching his chest, and again I said yes, and nodded my head, pointing at him, saying, "This is your son." He pointed at the 5th stick and cupped his breasts again. I gestured and said, "Yes," nodding my head, "This is your daughter." I thought to myself, I already knew he had 2 girls and a boy. While I was thinking that, he placed down another stick, a 6th stick that was really small. Then he pointed at himself. I got up and I hugged him and I said, "Congratulations." I realized he was telling me that he had had a son in the past year. He was so happy, and it amazed me. They are like humans, and they love their children. He then pointed at me to give him an update of my family. So I thought while gathering some sticks, do I show him or try to make him understand of my divorce and that I have a girlfriend with 2 kids that live with me? I thought it would be too complicated, and I'm sure they do not leave their mates until death, unlike us humans who are supposedly more civil than them. I think not. So I decided to show him my family with 1 stick for me, 1 for my wife, and 2 more for my boys. Then I said to myself, let's see how smart he is, or if he has a good memory. Because the last time I drew 4 people as my family. First me, then my wife, followed by my 2 boys. So when I placed the 5th one and cupped my breasts, he got up and picked me up and lifted me up about 4 feet, giving me a hug and making soft grunting sounds. I would never have thought that they celebrated the birth of a child and knew what hugging was. It convinced me that they are another species of a human. No way they're just creatures or animals. I then gestured to him, making motions of a woman with a big belly. I was making the motions of a pregnant woman. I then proceeded to try to find out how long before a baby is born. I won't go into how I was gesturing because it's funny and embarrassing. But the one act that I did that made him understand was when I laid down with my legs apart and mimicked a baby coming out while making a baby crying sound. That he understood. He pointed at the sky, then drew a round shape, then pointed at the sun, gesturing, but not the sun, and then crossed it out and drew a half circle, then crossing it out, followed by a full circle and pointing at that. I assumed he was trying to say the full moon. Then he drew 9 lines. So if I'm not mistaken, usually there's 1 full moon per month, sometimes 2, but rarely 2 in a month. I calculated he meant 9 months. Wow, that's the same as humans. He then pointed at me, and I pointed at his drawing, and he looked at me with shock. He proceeded to point at me, and then at himself, and putting his 2 index fingers side by side as if saying we are the same, I did the same, nodding my head. He was so happy. He attempted to ask me questions. I was able to understand one of them, which I think was, why humans don't like his species. I tried to explain to him that we are not all alike. I reminded him of when he gestured that some of his people are no good, and then some are good. I think he understood. And yes, I will call them people now, because they are humans of a different kind, but still humans. The only difference is they have their own language, do not have systems like us, meaning government, politicians, and they are larger with their hair all over their bodies. I also tried to show him that my kind is afraid of things that they do not understand or have never seen, so they think the best thing to do is to destroy it. I also tried to explain to him that my kind are mostly good people, and they are good-hearted, but not all, and to stay away from them. to not trust them, because you never know if it's a trap, and you do not want to take that chance. He gestured to me that someone in his family was injured, but not killed, and he can't move his right leg or his arm anymore. I assumed it was a gunshot, maybe to the spine. I then tried to ask him of his language or form of communication. He made clicking sounds and then said "Chinek" several times, and then about 12 more words, but I'm not sure what they meant. Irka, Hano, Katu, Thatro. Those are some that I wrote down. I started to do extensive research on these words in libraries, even asking a linguist professor at New York University to help me, but nothing came of that. You know I have many thoughts going through my head, but I don't put them all in the story because it would be 50 pages long on nothing but my thoughts. Anyway, he turned my back to him. Then he put his hands on my shoulders, pressing down on them while I'm standing up as if to say, to turn away from him. So I did. I then hear him walk away about 30 to 40 feet, and I hear clicking sounds and talking in some language. I immediately thought he had brought along a family member. After about a minute and a half, he called my name, Vic. And yes, he, for some reason, always stretches out the V in my name. I turned around, and to my disbelief, there stood another being. Holy crap. Well, my good folks, that's it for this part. I'm tired and I'm full of lots of emotions. It's hard on me to relive the past, really hard. It's like thinking of a deceased family member that you loved very much. I will have part 4 soon. Remember, you do not have to believe me, as this experience was meant for me and only me. Believing me or not doesn't change anything, and it doesn't matter to me. I will no longer say this is a true story, blah, blah, blah. I know it's true, and it's your choice to believe it or not. I only ask for you not to be rude or nasty or to make derogatory statements in the comments. Live and let live. It will not hurt you to have an open mind and to try to gain some knowledge of these humans. You have nothing to lose. And who knows? If this is a true story and you have an encounter yourself one day, you will have some knowledge and it may just save your life. Crazier things have happened. God bless to you all. Be safe and be kind to your fellow human. That includes Bigfoot. Thanks, Vic. Well, thank you for sending that in, Vic. I know a lot of people have been very anxious to hear your other encounters with Bigfoot, or specifically Ha-Tu-Ha. They're very vested in this interaction, so I know they're going to be anxiously awaiting part 4. Now, if you missed parts 1 and 2 and wondering, what the heck is this all about? Well, to get some context, go listen to video 1 and 2, parts 1 and 2 rather. I'm going to put the links to them in the video description below. All right, everyone. Well, I think that's a wrap on another successful journey down into Sasquatch Valley. As always, thank you for the company. It's always more enjoyable when you're here. And we'll be meeting up again soon. But until then, please always remember, absence of proof is not proof of absence. Thanks for listening.